We are living through the golden age of movie sound. And the latest example is Dune 2 from the director Denis Villeneuve. And this is an amazing, amazing accomplishment. The sound in this movie is incredible. I can't say enough good about this, about what they have done with this movie. I loved Dune 1, and the sound blew me away in that movie. It is incredible to watch it here in my home theater, and I had high hopes for Dune 2. I was really hoping that they would nail it with this second movie. And when it came out in theaters, I couldn't wait to see it, but I really, really wanted to see it for the first time here in my own home theater, and so I waited. And last night I watched it for the first time, and it did not disappoint. This movie is amazing. One of the things that I really appreciate about the director, Denis Villeneuve, is how much emphasis he puts on the sound. He has stated that early on in his career, when he worked with low budget films and, well, films that did not have as large of a budget, one of his frustrations was that they would put years into the script and making the film and shooting it and casting it and all of it. And then at the end, they would get to the very end and the sound was either an afterthought and or no money left in the budget to really do it correctly. And this was frustrating to him because he understands the importance of good sound in film. So now that he has these larger budgets to work with, he from the beginning puts the sound team on the project and makes sure that they are involved every step of the way. With Dune 1, he had the sound team come on shortly after they finalized the script and started moving forward. And so they worked with the team, with the film production team, all along the way. And in fact, something interesting, the shields that they use that they activate, like they have like a wrist thing and they activate the shields, the sound for those shields was actually developed before the visual effects, like before they actually created the shield visually. And so they went to the VFX team and they presented them with the sound. They said, this is what the shield is going to sound like. This is it. Now develop what it looks like. And I thought that was really cool because usually it's reversed. But again, this director, he understands how important sound is. And I am so glad that he's making movies because this is what we get. Now, they put a lot of effort into Dune 1 in making really good sound, and Mark Mangini, one of the sound engineers, he has this theory that the human ear, or the human brain, I should say, subconsciously understands sounds that are natural sounds versus sounds produced electronically or like through synthesizers. And so they went out of their way to record actual real sounds, and then obviously they modified them, but the sounds themselves were produced through natural means. So they went out into the desert and they would smack the sand with mallets to create, the thumping sound. And so they already had done a lot of the legwork on Dune 1 to produce these sounds in this world, and those translated over to Dune 2. And there were three sounds specifically that they ported over. There were the sounds of the ornithopters and the sound of the shield, and then the sounds of the thumpers. Those they used directly from Dune 1. Now obviously they modified them and used them in different ways, but they had their origins from Dune 1. And also with Dune 2, they went out into the deserts and they recorded the sounds of the wind and of the sand. And it's so cool because for the worm that moving through the sand, what they did is they actually buried microphones underneath the sand and then dragged heavy objects across the sand and recorded that sound, of that dragging sound. And then they were able to go in and produce these incredible soundscapes being in the desert and having these massive worms, just flying through the sand, and the sound. It sounds incredible. They did such an amazing job. It's so cool. And as I mentioned, I wanted to see this film for the first time here in my own home theater, and there are a few reasons for that. I have a 9.2.4 Atmos theater setup in here, and I've got two 15-inch subwoofers. But in addition to that, I also have my bass shakers, which rumble underneath my chair, and so I got that real deep tactile bass sound from a lot of things throughout the movie, and it really punched hard, from my subwoofers in working in combination with my bass shakers. And that's something that I just don't get at the local theater, is because they don't have bass shakers, and their bass, they have good subwoofers, no doubt about that. But it seems like in the theater, their solution for sound is just to crank it up louder. And I prefer to have sound that doesn't damage my hearing, but is also loud, but is also an immersive experience. And so fortunately, I'm able to get that here in my home theater. Now, there are a couple elements to this movie that I want to highlight that really stand out. One, I've already mentioned the worm. Now, the specific scene that I want to highlight is when Paul rides the worm for the first time. That is such a cool scene. It's so emotional and it's exhilarating, and the sound when he is first gripping the worm and first getting on it, he is, there's like no control. Like you feel like it could all just fall apart at any second, and the sound reflects that because it sounds kind of chaotic and unstable. And then as he gets a better grip and he kind of starts to stand up, the sound shifts and it becomes more stable. It kind of stabilizes and kind of elevates, and it just really takes you in that moment, and you're there with him, and it's a very exciting element of the film in that moment. And another element of the film I want to highlight is when the voices of the Jesuit, I'm not sure if they're witches or priestesses or whatever they are, but when they are kind of the imagery of them, but it's all audio. So you don't see them, but their voices are kind of ghostly, and they're traveling all around you, and they really go into the height channels, and it creates this immersive experience of being just kind of surrounded by all of these voices internally inside the character's head, and you're right there with them as you hear these kind of ghostly voices just traveling all around. And they did that several times throughout the film, and it sounded really good. And then the third element I want to highlight is at the end when they have the climactic battle and everything is just hitting hard, and it's big and it's loud and it's powerful and it's impactful, and the forces are fighting against each other and they're attacking the vehicles and everything. Everything is just a major clash, and then it transitions to the fight scene between Paul and his his nemesis, we'll say that, and the sound just pulls in and it goes almost silent, and all you hear are just their sounds of them breathing and moving and their knives, and it becomes extremely intimate and close, and it pulls you in and you're right there with them. And the sound does that by almost disappearing, and you're just there in that moment where it's just two humans battling it out. And so to have that contrast, they use the sound to great effect to create those two very different environments. I could go on and on about this movie and the sound in it, but I'm going to need to watch it several more times. Even as I was watching it, I kept thinking, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm missing so much because there's just so much here. I love this movie. I am super impressed with what they've done with the sound, and I hope to see many more movies from this director. It's amazing. Thanks for watching.